Hello everybody, welcome to the latest edition of Goodison Park, my home. And I've got a real true blue with me today, lifelong Evertonian, Alan Stubbs, who got to live the dream and to pull on that royal blue jersey himself. How are you, Alan?
I'm very good, yeah, I'm very good. Thanks for inviting me in.
You're welcome. It's a great story, isn't it, really? A real dream come true. Because before your playing days, I mean, you were there on the terraces watching Everton as a boy.
Yeah, it was, it seems a distant memory away now, you know, from when I first went to my first game.
Yeah.
My memories were always from firstly going to the Gladys Street.
Yeah.
And then because I was too small to see over the wall, used to always be a row of crates along the front of the wall, which would stand on to lean over and see and watch the game. The good old days.
Yeah. Do you actually remember your first game, or
I don't. Sure. I think with all the heading of the ball, I think I'm starting to lose my mind, and obviously that's no pun. I know it's a few ex-players is a serious issue.
Yeah.
But I'm not one for stats or the biggest and most proudest memory for me is obviously getting a chance to wear the blue jersey. Everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether, if I'm looking back now, was my first game. I would, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I really am. Go on, enlighten me.
Yeah.
Putting the pressure.
Oh, forever. I meant as a fan. I wasn't talking about your debut, but I'm sure you can remember. I'm sure you can have great memories of that Howard Kendall side in the mid '80s. Oh, that must have been incredible.
Well, I had, fortunately for me, I had the pleasure of growing up with that team.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was, potentially the best team in Everton's history.
Yeah.
And being really honest in terms of the style of football, it was easy to become an Everton fan watching that. Some brilliant players. Well, my idols were playing there. Peter Reid and Graham Sharp were my idols growing up.
Yeah.
So, Sharpie for me is a bit surreal, really. I got the opportunity to play against Sharpie and all in a old Central League game on a Saturday. He was coming back from an injury.
Okay.
And we were playing him for Bolton at the time. And it was probably the most humbling and learning experience I've ever had.
Yeah, going up
playing
against him.
Yeah. I learned so much that day. Listen, he schooled me.
Okay.
Let's say.
Yeah.
In terms of his timing of the ball, in terms of jumping, his hang time was just ridiculous.
Really.
And I just learned so much that day.
Yeah.
From not just going to try and jump with the man, but more concentrating on trying to win the ball.
Okay.
And it was priceless.
Yeah.
A pleasure to play against them. One of them pinch yourself moments, from being your hero to suddenly you're up against them on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I must admit, Sharpie was my number one.
Yeah.
And Reedy, unfortunately, I'm sure he'll won't mind me saying this was my number two.
Fair enough. Yeah. So obviously, coming from Kirby yourself, how did it start off at Bolton? Then how did it all come about?
Well, I was at Everton initially.
Yeah.
As a young lad, I was there from 9 years old. We had a decent little local team in Kirby called Pingwood, and we were beating quite a lot of teams, and we were winning quite a lot of trophies.
Yeah.
And I got asked if I'd be interested in coming to Everton, and obviously, I couldn't wait to get there. And I was there for the best part of 4 years.
Okay.
And it comes down to exactly the same as what it is now. It comes down to a decision. And unfortunately, on that day or that year, the decision didn't go in my favour. They made a choice for someone else rather than me, and that's football.
Yeah.
I must admit, at the time, I was devastated and thought that was it. But my dad was great with me in terms of listen, there'll be other opportunities. If it's not Everton, someone else. And ironically, Neil Dewsnip, who was the academy manager at Everton, and obviously been there for a long time. It was his dad who was a scout for Bolton.
Okay.
And he knocked on the door and he said, "Listen, I've heard that you've been released. We'd love you to come to Bolton." And I've got to be honest, at the time I was like, Bolton? Wasn't sure.
Okay.
And he explained that they had a group of players who travelled to Bolton from Huyton.
Okay.
So they'd put a bus on and they'd meet by the Eagle and Child and they'd go up on a Tuesday and Thursday. So my job was to try and get to Huyton. So it was my dad who picked me up from school early on a Tuesday, Thursday, make our way up to Huyton, the Eagle and Child, and then we joined the other lads on the bus, and that's how it all really started, and probably started to get probably more serious then.
Yeah.
I think from 14 onwards, it starts to get a little bit more real, you know, because I think you're getting closer to that. You start learning more. I think you've got to start, I think, showing signs of progression. And it was ironically again Phil Neal who given me debut at Bolton. You know, it was more or less like a little bit of a jigsaw where everything falls into place. I'd gone from being a striker at 8 and 9, then I moved to left wing for Kirby Boys.
Okay.
Then I dropped back into midfield, and there seems to be a bit of a familiar pattern here where I'm seem to be going backwards. And then when I was at Bolton, and I was probably 15, 16, we had a couple of injuries at centre back, and the reserve team manager at the time said to me, "Listen, would you play centre off?" And I played. I did okay, and then I more or less said, "Listen, we want to start playing you there more and more," and that's really how it all come about. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, really, obviously established yourself at Bolton. There's trips to Wembley, the League Cup final, the playoffs as well. I mean, it was some really good times with them.
It was, listen, we had a decent team. We built, in a way, it probably helped me, because sometimes I think even more so now for young lads coming through, especially when you're at a Premier League club, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
because the money involved now. You've got to be exceptional, I think, to make a debut in the first team of the Premier League.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, it was easier to get an opportunity in the first team because the finances weren't as much.
Yeah.
So younger players got more opportunities. I got mine at Bolton when I think I'd just turned 18. And it was the old Division 2. Managed to get in the team, and realistically, it was all about establishing myself, and quickly, I managed to keep my place in the team. Phil Neal obviously gave me my debut, and then Bruce Rioch came in quite quickly after that.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I think I was about 19 when Bruce made me captain.
Yeah.
Which was a big call, because we had some quite experienced players in the dressing room.
Yeah.
And, I was probably an old head on young shoulders.
Yeah.
I didn't suffer any fools.
Yeah.
I knew I had quite a strong personality. For me, I'd always tried to portray myself as a bit of a leader, individually and collectively from my teammates. And I think that helped me gain a bit of respect for the older players.
Yeah.
We had like Phil Brown then, who was obviously he was probably in his 30s, Phil, when he came to Bolton. Tony Kelly, a local lad, great player. It was great with me as well. Mark Seagraves, formerly at Liverpool, and he came to Bolton. So I had a couple of experienced players where it could have easily been very difficult for me, but they were great with me.
Yeah.
Really good, and we had some good times. We had some good times at Bolton.
Yeah, and obviously Bruce Rioch, a notorious disciplinarian, a real hard man though.
Yeah.
But obviously the Everton connections there. And he had a year in the Premier League, was it, with Bolton before the move to Celtic?
Yeah, we were a bit of a yo-yo team.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I eventually left is that when we did get promoted, it was an opportunity for the club to really try and have a go and invest, and we didn't really. I understand why. I know it's not easy when you try and invest a lot, and we've seen a number of clubs do it, and it doesn't work out. But I thought with what we had, and trying to keep them there, because we obviously had myself, Jason McAteer.
Yeah.
So we had a nucleus of a good team. We just needed a little bit of investment to try and help us stay in there. We knew it was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And we didn't really. And it was a tough season.
Yeah.
Because of that. And I'd voiced my concerns about that. And obviously, as we kept playing, we had a bid from Blackburn coming for me and Jason.
Yeah.
While Kenny Dalglish was the manager there for 9 million. It was a joint bid on the premises only that they were the only team that could speak to us.
Okay.
So Bolton obviously knew that, and we went along, spoke with Kenny at the Haydock Thistle. Everything was agreed. And then literally as we're walking out, Jason gets a phone call to say Liverpool have put an offer in for 4.5 million.
Yeah.
And obviously Kenny and Blackburn were not happy because it was a joint 9 million deal on the assurance that no one else could speak to us. And with Liverpool and Jason, I totally get it. If it was me with Everton, it would have been exactly the same. And I said to him, listen, go and speak to them. You might never get a chance again. Yeah. Obviously, I was in limbo a little bit because I would be going back to Bolton, especially with saying the day before that, I'm going to be going and stuff like that. But so I had to eat a bit of humble pie going back.
Wow.
And then, look, thankfully for me, we'd come back up again. So we got relegated, come back up again. And at the end of that season, when we got relegated again, that's when Celtic came in for me.
Okay, yeah. And I believe I saw it in another interview. You didn't know this until years later. Joe Royle actually tried to get you at Everton as well.
Yeah, I'd had a few meetings not meetings with Joe, but in terms of functions. Mm-hmm. And Joe, one day, it was like probably a good 8 or 9 years ago now, said to me, you didn't know that I tried to get you at Everton, didn't you? And I didn't have a clue.
Wow.
Didn't know anything about it. And it was when I was at Bolton. And I think him and Colin Todd, who was the manager at the time, they had a good relationship. And I think Joe said, listen, we'd love to take Stubbsy. What's the deal? Blah, blah, blah. And it didn't obviously come off.
Yeah.
And I think, Colin said to Joe, listen, please, as conversation between me and you, this can't come out. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for me. So for whatever reason, it didn't come off. But I didn't know until Joe mentioned it.
Yeah. I mean, going up to Celtic, was it 4 million fee there? Yeah. A huge move for you. But obviously, your time there, huge ups and downs because of obviously the cancer and the health issues.
Yeah. I at the time, when I went to Celtic, I was on the way up to sign for Celtic, and I got a phone call from Bruce Rioch, who was the Arsenal manager. Okay. And Bruce said, listen, don't do anything just yet. I want to sign you for Arsenal. I want you to come to Arsenal. And he said, but I know you're on your way to Glasgow. So me and my agent were waiting at Carlisle, and we were waiting for a good hour and a half, at least. It could have even been 2 hours. Celtic are on the phone. Where are you? Everything okay? And we're like, yeah, we've just stopped off. And obviously we're waiting for Bruce, and I've gone to my agent, who ironically was Bruce's brother at the time. Mm-hmm. I've gone, listen, we need a decision. It's going to look, not great. And it's looking dodgy in terms of, the way we should have been in Glasgow by now.
Yeah.
We need an answer from Bruce. And we rang Bruce back up and said, listen, we need to know. And Bruce rightly said to us, he said, listen, I really want you to come. He said, but I'm having problems here. And I think it was when all the Ian Wright stuff was happening.
Yeah.
I think Arsenal were second in the league, or just finished second in the league. And Bruce said, listen, it's not going to happen. I think I'm going to get the sack here soon now, after discussions I've just had. So go and sign for Celtic.
Fair enough, yeah.
And I went up, and I've got to be honest, Tommy Burns was just a fantastic human being. He was amazing with me. Showed me around the stadium, and I think at the time there was 3/4 of it built. They were still building the stand to the left hand side as you come out the tunnel.
Yeah.
I think which was called the Jungle,
Yeah.
and it just blew me away. And I signed. I stayed over overnight, done a medical the following morning, signed, and I was at the time I was their record signer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had some amazing times. I got no regrets there. It was tough for my wife to settle down initially early. It was our first move away. There was a chance for in the first year that I was going to Aston Villa.
Yeah.
They'd offered $5.5 million for me. Wages were all agreed, but Fergus McCann, who was the chairman there, he said that I was valued at $6.5 million on the books.
Okay.
And it just, so from a financial point of view, Aston Villa said, we can't do any more. We can only go 5 million and plus your wages. That's the money we've got. So that fell through.
Yeah.
And then after that, Tommy Burns sent his wife around. She started to take Mandy shopping, coffees, just to try and make her feel a bit more at home. The Celtic would then bring Mandy's mum up,
Right.
fly her up, and we just started to settle. And then my football, as a result of that, my form started to get better.
Yeah.
And then it was probably it was 4 years into it where then I got the diagnosis.
Yeah.
It's just one of them things, unfortunately, and we had a cup final against Rangers. We just lost the final 1-0. I think Rod Wallace scored in the 89th minute.
So you're already gutted.
Yeah, already devastated with that. And then as I'm walking off, I get pulled to one side to say, you've been chosen for the drug test. Little did I know at that time, but that drug test saved my life.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy at the time because I wanted to be in the dressing room with my teammates. But I had that drug test. Well, it was a urine test, really.
Yeah.
3 weeks later, I'm playing golf with Mark Seagraves on the golf course, who Ziggy, who was known to me. And I'd literally picked the phone up, and it was the doc from Celtic, which was Jack Mulcairn. And he said, Alan, it's Jack, how are you? I said, I've got your results from your drug test. He said, where are you? I said, I'm playing golf. He went, okay. He said, they've come back positive. And I've gone, that's impossible, Jack. He said, you know me, I don't take drugs, because I was thinking, as if I'd been found positive at taking something.
Yeah.
I said, I don't do drugs or anything. And he said, I know, Alan. He said, I know that. He said, how are you feeling? And I actually did feel great. I felt as fit as I possibly had been. And I said, I feel great, really good. I feel, as fit as what I have done ever before, as I'm just enjoying the off season. He said, any different feelings you've had and anything like that? And that's when I said, well, I have had this weird feeling in one of my testicles, but it's like a sharp pain, but it would go away and I wouldn't have it for months. He went, okay. He said, the reason why I'm asking, he said, is that, he said, you're producing a hormone which is normally only found in pregnant women. When it's found in men, it's linked to cancer. And I've so suddenly straight away, then you're going, oh, okay. And he went, right, he said, with you saying that to me, he said, we need to bring you up. We need to just get it checked out. He said, I'm pretty sure, and he was just trying to reassure me.
Yeah.
He said, I'm pretty sure it'll be nothing, but let's just get it checked. So he said, so this was the Friday. And he said, listen, I'll let you just obviously be with your family this weekend, and we'll send the car down to pick you up, you and your wife. So anyway, they did, went up, had an ultrasound, and it was as clear as day. You could see it. It was like one testicle was like a white, grey, light grey colour. Yeah. The other one was, part of it was light grey, and the cancer bit was black. So we said, that's the cancer. So we said, we're going to need to operate. He said, it'll just be like a hernia operation. They'll remove it, do a biopsy, and then we'll take it from there. So straightforward, the operation.
Yeah.
I was in, I was out, I was back playing within 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have time to think about it. For me, it was, okay, yeah, it's fine. Biopsy came back, all clear. So everything was good to go.
Yeah.
And then it was only 18 months later when I had a relapse. And that was only found again by me having routine scans. So I'd have a scan every 3 months.
Okay.
And you're starting to get a bit of confidence now with the scans, thinking, oh, it's okay, just another scan. You know, fingers crossed, everything's okay. Because obviously the first few, you are pretty apprehensive in terms of, you know, not knowing what the results are going to be. Anyway, went in, had the scan, and then literally in the night time, the specialist that rang me said, Alan, listen, I'm really, really sorry. He said, to inform you, he said, we thought you were out the woods completely. He said, we found a tumour at the base of your spine. It's probably the size of a pea at the moment.
Okay.
He said, we need to investigate more. He said, there's a couple of options, but we need to speak to some of the surgeons here and abroad to see which is the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
So they called me back in. I was there with Mandy, had the specialists there, and he said, listen, we've had a discussion. He said, we've all come to the conclusion that we want to give you 4 courses of chemotherapy. He says, and then after each one, we'll do a scan and we'll see where it's at. Because it'll either reduce it in size, it will obliterate it, or it won't do anything.
Right.
He said that's what will happen. So anyway, had the first chemotherapy and felt great. Wasn't getting any symptoms in terms of nausea, sickness. You know, thankfully. I think with that chemotherapy, it's a very individual thing.
Yeah.
Some people can really struggle with it. Some people can breeze through it. Some people will get some symptoms from it. With me, whether it was because of my fitness and stuff, it helped me come through it. Had a scan, wasn't really doing anything. And then I went in for the second one. And literally just before I'd go in for my second course of chemotherapy, I was Celtic were playing Rangers, and I was in this local health club that we were members of with Tommy Johnson, who was a player at Celtic at the time. And we're watching the game, and suddenly I've just gone, Tommy, I said, is it cold in here? And he's gone, no, he said, it's roasting. I said, I'm absolutely freezing. I said, I feel like I'm getting a cold. Yeah. So anyway, Tommy's took me straight home, and I was literally shivering. Yeah. So I must have caught the tiniest of bugs, and because my immune system was starting to diminish, it was basically, I had like a full-blown flu. And Mandy had rang the hospital. They sent an ambulance to take me in and just put me on a drip just to flush it out. Yeah. Which is quite a normal thing, I think, just because of you've got nothing to fight it. Did that. So they said, listen, on the second one, we're going to give you it over 5 days. The first one was very aggressive, over 3. So the second one, they've done it over 5 days, and it wasn't as intense. The first one, it was your chemotherapy bag, which is just a plastic bag with your chemotherapy in, and a bin bag over it. Right. Because I think sunlight supposedly affects it. So that finishes, that's straight into you. Then alarm goes off. They come, change the bag, saline, that's flushed into you. Chemotherapy, and it's that continuous for 24 hours. So you were probably getting maybe an hour's sleep max before the alarm would go. Yeah. Next one, alarm would go. Wow. And if it wasn't your alarm, it was someone else's alarm. Yeah. So it wasn't the best experience, you know, in your lifetime. And as I was in there, there's a little story. There's a lad who had kept pacing the ward. Okay. And he's up and down, he's walking up and down with his saline bag and he's walking, and he keeps looking into my room all the time. And he's trying to acknowledge me, and I've gone like that and let on. And the nurse has come in and said, Alan, I'm really sorry. He said, we've got a guy here, he said he's a massive Celtic fan. I said, and he's struggling at the moment with coming to terms with the cancer. Yeah. He's got a different type of cancer to you. Would you say hello to him and have a chat with him? So anyway, he come in and we had a chat and I was talking to him and he was like obviously in awe and I can't believe I'm speaking to Alan Stubbs. And anyway, so he said, I'm really struggling. He said with it, he said, I can't get my head around it. He said, I'm a bit of an emotional wreck at the moment. Yeah. So I said, listen, you just got to stay positive and be yourself and just everyone's different and try and, you know, don't think about, because it does, cancer takes you to dark places. Yeah. You know, and anyway, I was reading the Lance Armstrong book and I'd just finished it. So I said, yeah, so I signed it for him and give it to him. I said, have a read of that and it might help you. Yeah. Don't know, but it might do. So anyway, he's like, oh, thanks very much. I'll definitely. So anyway, he went. I've left, gone home. A month later, I've gone back for my second course. And I'm all ready to, wired up and everything to do me chemotherapy again. And I've gone, and I can't remember his name. Just say, for instance, it was Chris. I said to Ness, I said, how's Chris? I said, is he in this time? And she said, oh, I'm really sorry. He said, he passed away last week. Right. And I think that's when it really dawned on me to think, excuse the language, shit, this is serious. Yeah. And it was like, that really hit me at that time. And so I started me second course. Was much better, wasn't as intense. I left, had a scan, and then they'd come back to me and said, Alan, listen, we're really happy. It's reduced in size. We're going to operate. Yeah. So, and I've gone, okay. I said, right, when? So, and I've gone, like, what? Like tomorrow, today? And they were just taken back and like, no, just can't believe it. He said, listen, go home, speak to your family, you know, have a chat with them, be with them, and come up. We'll do it on Monday. Yeah. So he explained to me what the operation was going to be. They cut me open all the way down, removed everything out because the tumor was right at the back of my spine, next to your main arteries. Okay. So it's the usual, sign a disclaimer form just in case, because there was a possibility that you can die. And you do all that, and 9 hours later, I was in the recovery room, thankfully, on the mend. Yeah. There's a lot more to the story, but I won't go into because it does get a bit gory. Yeah. So, but yeah. And when I look back, I was lucky. Yeah. I was lucky. I was, you know, some people will look at it and go, how was you lucky? More likely unlucky. But it couldn't be any further from the truth. Yeah. If I wasn't a footballer, I wouldn't have got that drug test.
No, you wouldn't have done it. No.
And I would have probably been like a typical man, tried to probably keep it to myself, maybe not gone and spoke about it to the doctor. Yeah. And I know it's like everything with cancer. Time is so precious. Yeah. The quicker you find it, the better your chances of surviving it. The less the more you don't speak about it, the less time you have of beating it. It's common sense. Yeah. I think men are getting better, but not quick enough. Yeah. You know, so yeah. Listen, I'm glad that I'm here to tell the story, and I do believe that I have helped some people, whether it's during their illness or before their illness, just by talking about it. And I've said all along, men are getting better, but we're still quite pathetic about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a series to bring joy to Evertonians, but on top of that, we've not even got to the bit of you wearing a blue shirt. Yeah, but if what you've just been saying over the last few minutes, Alan, if that just saves one life, perhaps somebody you watching this, and they go, oh, feeling I'm not quite right or whatever.
It is, you know, because it's so important. Yeah, you know. I remember my dad unfortunately died from it, and he was very old school. You know, we've gone through a generational thing where the older generation didn't really go to see the doctors until it was too late. And I think as I said before, we are getting better, but there's still so much room for improvement to do it. Women are a different breed. So much better at it. You know, so much better at talking. And if not talking to the partners, talking to the friends about it. Yeah. You know, and ultimately, as a man, you know, take your mate along with you if you want.
Yeah.
Take whoever you want along with you if it makes you feel a bit more comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, by not talking about it, every day is a precious day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't be daft.
Yeah.
And speak about it.
Yeah. That's a lesson to us all, really. So
Yeah.
so you go through all of that.
Yeah.
You get yourself back in the Celtic team, and you've got your dream move to Everton at the end of the season.
Yeah, it was a bit. I think it was a tough decision, but an easy decision as well, because I felt as if I owed Celtic something because of how good they'd been to me.
Yeah.
And Martin O'Neill was amazing with me. It really was. He was a brilliant manager anyway. One of the, if not the best I'd worked under. And at the end of the season, he'd offered me a new deal, and Martin had obviously heard that there was interest from Everton. He's gone, listen, Stubbs, he said, I know what Everton means to you. He says, but I want you to stay. I must stress that. He said, there's a 2-year deal on the table for you. He said, and you know it'll be sorted no matter what.
Yeah.
He said, but if you don't speak to them, he said, you'll never, ever forgive yourself.
Yeah.
He said, so go down. He said, go and speak with Walter. He said, and if it's not right, that contract's still there for you, because I want you to come back. Yeah. And, it was one of them that it was typical of Martin and the man.
Yeah.
The way he dealt with it. And I'd come down, and obviously once I'm speaking with Walter, it's just a matter of, where's the contract to sign? And it was just too much of a draw. It got away from me once. It wasn't going to get away from me again.
Yeah.
And the pull of playing for Everton was just far too great.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great accolade as well. Rangers man Walter brings you in. He obviously admires you from afar across the old firm there.
Yeah, I know it must have took Walter, a bit to do that. But Walter was the same. Was a great man.
Yeah.
He come to Everton at a tough time. He had a tough job. When he came, he'd come from spending more or less what he wanted at Rangers to not spending hardly anything at all.
Yeah.
Under Bill and Everton. But he was probably one of the best gentlemen I've ever come across
as
in
a
football.
man, yeah.
He was a proper man. He was hard as nails. You just didn't cross Walter.
No.
You didn't cross him at all. Otherwise, once he raised his voice, you did take a step back.
Yeah.
And not many did it. Not many confronted him, I must admit.
Yeah.
But it was just so obviously so thankful to Walter. And also, really sad to see him pass away a few years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've been there a couple of months. Ironically, your first Everton goal is at Bolton. Obviously, it's the new stadium by then. But on the same day, Paul Gascoigne gets his only goal for Everton as well.
I know.
What a day that
nice
was.
Little accolade. To be honest, even when I look back now, to think that I was on the same pitch as a Paul Gascoigne.
Yeah.
Because Gazza was something else. First of, I think at Everton he was probably on his way down.
Yeah.
In terms of not at his peak, but it was still a privilege to be on the same pitch as him. Great fella, absolute diamonds of a guy.
Yeah.
On the pitch and off the pitch, heart of gold.
Yeah.
And at his peak, a special talent.
Yeah, that's probably best of his generation.
Yeah,
I would
there's
say.
every chance of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you remember much about that day? Obviously, going back to Bolton then and scoring.
Yeah,
and
I remember the ball was pretty central. Actually, I think it was probably about 20. I'll probably say 35, just to exaggerate. It was probably about 25 yards out, and it was just the way the wall was set up, and we'd spoke about it beforehand or in the previous weeks. And Tommy was on the end of the wall, and Tommy's more or less just cleared the wall out by leaning across and clearing it, which has just opened it up for me. And I struck it pretty well, and thankfully it's gone into the roof of the net. So it was. Ironically, I'd scored for Bolton against Everton at Goodison, you know, and then I go back to I'm at Everton and I score against Bolton. Obviously, two clubs that are very close to my heart. So yeah, nice feeling. Nice feeling.
Did you celebrate much?
A little, not a lot. You know,
Yeah.
I think times were different then. You know, I think I did. I put my hand up, but then all the lads jumped on me. You know, so I didn't really have much time to celebrate.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I chipped in with a few goals here and there.
Yeah.
Probably not enough, actually, if I'm being honest.
Okay, you thought you should have had a few more. I mean, after you've waited all that time, you come, you know, you're in your 30th year by the time you come to Everton, and then before the end of your first season, like you said all about Walter Smith and what a great man he was. It was tough circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, he's out the door in March and change your manager.
Yeah, and I think we were all, to be honest with the player, a lot of the players were gutted about it because of the affinity that they had for Walter. You know, a lot of the players really liked him, but it was just the circumstances. And you know, obviously, we bring in David Moyes, who was a young up and coming manager who did really well at Preston. Yeah, they'd been in and around the playoffs and promotion for a couple of seasons for him, and he gets an opportunity at Everton. And when he first came in, you know, I think we weren't obviously in the position that we wanted to be.
No.
You know, we were down towards the bottom regions of the table, and David's come in and he's talked about hard work, teamwork, being hard to beat, resilience, all these things, and you could see that he had the bit between his teeth.
Yeah,
you know, he was a young manager, very enthusiastic, very keen to prove to people that he's good enough, you know, for this role, and he was prepared to take anybody on.
Okay, yeah,
you know, in the early days, and as I think he'd come from Preston where he was a very dominant figure.
Yeah,
there,
being the captain and everything.
Yeah, you know, and then he comes to Everton and we had some big personalities in that dressing room. You know, so for a manager to come in, probably wasn't the easiest dressing room. Yeah. Not in a bad way, but in terms of big personalities and trying to dominate them, I would say his biggest task was to get them people on side.
Okay.
And I think early on he was not forgiving. You know, it's my way or the highway. Okay. You don't like it, off you go.
Yeah. And
I think like we were like, okay. and not in a bad way, but like thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And to be fair to him, I think he realised quite quickly that he had to choose his battles very carefully.
Okay.
And he over the years at Everton, he certainly evolved as a manager. You know, when I was there, you know, from the time that he came to when he left, you know, he took the club, I think, to a real good place.
Yeah.
You know, he grew the team, he grew the club. We were consistently, more often than not, towards the end, becoming a top 6, 7, 8 team. We were always around them places, which seems, you look back now, seems a distant
golden
past.
age.
Yeah, it does. You know, so I think people appreciated, you know, the job that David did definitely first time around.
Yeah, and as he said himself, obviously now different Everton, different David Moyes. And he's saying in those early days, I mean, he laughs about it now. You know, he took the warm up. He did everything, perhaps because he maybe didn't trust other people back then, whereas now he delegates.
Yeah, listen, I think because he was a young, I think a lot of young, energetic, enthusiastic managers, they've got lots of energy. They want to do everything sometimes. And I think sometimes it's only when you get a little bit older and you take a step back and you realise and go, I can't do everything.
Yeah.
But as a young manager, you want to take on the world. You know, you think you can do everything, you know, but there's only so much, I think, sometimes you can get pulled from pillar to post.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that David has definitely learned from is to become a better delegator.
Yeah.
I think he probably has also become a better man manager.
Yeah.
So, this time around, I think we would, if I was in there, I think we would definitely see it, or Bainesy will probably see it now.
Mm-hmm.
You will definitely see a different David Moyes.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how he does. Obviously, I hope he does as good a job, if not better, than the first time around.
Yeah.
I think we're all hoping that. Yeah. But he's also got a tough job as well.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to those early days, obviously it was Fulham straight off, and then as we're speaking now, it's just after the Brighton game, the first away game under Moyes in the second time round. I was just checking a first away game there, Derby County. It's another one you scored 4-3. So
I actually remember. I think who else scored that game? Was it did Dunk score that game?
Dunk scored, Alexanderson and Unzi as well.
Yeah. So it's the early days were prosperous days in terms of goals.
Yeah.
But I think what David did when he came in is that he understood the club. He understood what type of club it was.
Yeah.
In terms of what it meant to the fans, hard working class fan base.
Yeah.
Who the club means everything to them. Yeah. Obviously his famous saying, as in the People's Club, is a historic quote now. Yeah. And saying, and obviously one at the time that got under a lot of Liverpool fans' skin.
Yeah, I think still does.
Yeah, I think, so he got it.
Yeah.
He got it. We've seen managers over the years that have been after David who haven't got it.
Yeah.
This is it's an amazing football club.
Yeah.
We're lucky. We've got two fantastic football clubs in the city. I obviously prefer to talk about one more than the other. But David got it.
Yeah.
He still gets it. And I think at the time, the fans got David. They understood what type of manager he was. I think he was a very cautious manager at the beginning.
Yeah.
And he evolved in terms of we started to trust and play it more attacking football as the years went on.
Yeah.
And also he got better players.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously we was talking about that the instant impact, People's Club, those early results, but then pre-season under David Moyes said was also pretty brutal at times as well.
Yeah, just a bit. It's probably a bit of an understatement. David's pre-seasons were as tough as I'd ever experienced in my life. Really? They were very much old school, but ones that he believed were tried and tested. Mm-hmm. We would more often than not run until at least one was physically sick.
Okay.
It was literally run till you drop.
Yeah.
Survival of the fittest. And it wasn't until a couple of years in where David started to allow fitness coaches, more so David Billows, who was a great guy, great fitness coach and all at the time, where Dave used to have probably daily battles with the gaffer in terms of trying to change the structure and the style of our running sessions.
Okay.
A Tuesday would always be, or we'd always finish with runs. A Thursday we would always do some sort of fitness work, and we would have a morning and afternoon session thrown in there somewhere. I was still doing heading practice in my 30s. That's what David was like. Yeah. He wanted to work on things. Everybody, I think the players now, everybody like back then when I was playing, everybody's roles were simplified.
Yeah.
Everybody knew the responsibilities. There was no stone left unturned. Yeah. And you were under no illusion what was expected of you.
Yeah. And in that first full season, obviously it was 7th, but I've got to mention about this good friend of yours, Wayne Rooney, coming in. You're like big brother to him, and I think you just come on the pitch, hadn't you, when he scored that Arsenal goal?
Wayne's first game, Arsenal.
Yeah.
The goal really that Wayne burst onto the scene.
Yeah.
And I think I came on
Yeah,
that
so
day.
you just come on as like an 89 minutes.
I think I don't know whether come on for Davey. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we obviously had to deal with the media speculation around Wayne.
Yeah. I mean, what was it just like being on the pitch, seeing when he actually did that, and you're presumably behind him?
We'd obviously known about Wayne.
Yeah.
And Wayne had been up to train with us on a number of occasions, and it was just about when was the right time to let Wayne go.
Yeah.
You know, we all knew that he was good enough. It was just about trying to protect him and when that time was right to let him go.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously he's come on, and to say I wasn't surprised with the impact he had is probably an understatement, because we knew how good he was.
Yeah.
Obviously to do it against Arsenal, you know, was beyond probably anybody's dreams.
Yeah.
But he was just a special talent.
Yeah.
You know, he was a young, enigmatic, free spirit.
Yeah.
He was but people will all, and this might sound controversial, but it's not. People will all claim that I coached Wayne, I did this, I did that. Wayne did it himself. Yeah. Wayne was natural.
Yeah.
You know, Wayne coached himself.
Yeah.
He was that good.
Yeah.
His football brain was way above anything I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Or played against. You know, for a young lad. You know, we're talking about 16 years of age.
Yeah.
And he was incredible. He was incredible.
Yeah.
And the biggest job for me was trying to look after him.
Yeah.
You know, which wasn't easy.
No.
It wasn't easy. He was obviously a street. He was a boy from the street.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he grew up in an area which was very similar to where I grew up in Kirby.
Yeah.
You know, very much working class. And it was just about trying to keep his feet on the ground, trying to guide him in terms of all the publicity, what to do, what not to do. But yeah, you know, he just burst onto the scene, and everybody wanted a bit of him.
Yeah. And what way did you actually able to look after him, guide him? Obviously, there's nothing like you've just said that Wayne could be taught from a footballing point of view. But what did you do as a teammate?
It was more or less in terms of looking out for the pitfalls.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of trying to help him with a bit of experience on what to do, what not to do, how to live his life.
Yeah.
What to watch out for. You know, we'd pick him up from his house, bring him to training, and we'd drop him off. And then it was just about, listen, just be careful in terms of, because everybody's going to want to know you now. Everybody's going to want to try and be your mate. Trying to help him in terms of the city as well. You know, going out, staying away from the wrong people, and trying to mix with the right people. So there was all elements of that. Obviously, he started to earn bigger wages as well. You know, so trying to help him manage his money.
Yeah.
You know, and what to do and put it away. And obviously, and then he was asking advice about agents, and because obviously, as you can imagine, everybody's trying to get him to go with them. And ultimately, Wayne was never ever going to be at Everton for a long time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, unfortunately for Everton fans, the club was in a real precarious position, and they had to sell him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Bill tried to say differently and offer him a contract which would have been probably the biggest in the club's history at the time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was a contract offered that the club didn't want him to sign because they needed the money.
Just all gains from shit.
Yeah, it was, you know, and then Wayne ultimately left.
Yeah. I mean, it was on the back of that. I mean, with Wayne leaving, and then you go on to have that club's best ever Premier League finish without him there.
Yeah, I think it galvanised it, because I think a lot of people, because we had a real good dressing room, we had a bunch of real good lads, honest working lads, probably not the biggest names, you know, but with Wayne leaving, everyone was writing us off then.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, now Wayne's going, where's the goals going to come from? They've lost the main focus, the best player. And that was true.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. But what we did is that we had a real desire and a team spirit that was as good as any.
Yeah.
And it really spurred us on.
Yeah. I mean, you were a captain as well that season. I mean, incredible. I mean, one of the early highlights was obviously that game in December, beating Liverpool 1-0. I mean, that must have been special for you as a lifelong Evertonian.
It was special because we didn't get many wins against them.
Yeah.
And that was probably my biggest regret, as a player at Everton, that we just didn't get enough wins in the derby.
Yeah.
Liverpool were better than us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you have to be honest. They had better players, and more often than not, unfortunately, they had one individual who was more often than not was the difference between the teams.
Yeah.
And that was Steven Gerrard.
Yeah.
He was an outstanding player, the driving force behind that team, and more often than not, he would be the one who would pull out a bit of class or that moment to change the game, which would sway it Liverpool's way. And so to get a result was fantastic. It's always to play in a Merseyside derby, full stop, is something that was beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
I never ever thought I would have an opportunity to do it. To then play in a number of them and also captain Everton in a few of them was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I must admit it. Coming out at Goodison Park every other week was surreal.
Really?
It was. I never ever took one of them games for granted. Yeah. Because I'd worked so hard to try and achieve what I'd set out and tried my best to do from such a young age.
Yeah.
So so I wasn't going to take for granted coming out there, and it was every single game walking out of there, the tingles on the back of my neck.
Yeah.
Never ever diminished. No. Never ever. They were always, it was always that roar and that noise coming out of there is just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you actually beat Liverpool that day in end of December with the league cars goal, was that the moment that you started to believe that you could get?
I think we were believing anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that didn't do us any harm whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because it was a close game. I think we'd had chances. Liverpool had a few chances, and then Cars obviously steps up and scores that. And obviously, it's quite iconic in terms of the celebrations afterwards.
Pylon,
and I am somewhere in that. I felt sorry for whoever was beneath me in that.
Yeah.
It's special because it's a Liverpool derby.
Yeah.
If you're from the city, it means more.
Yeah.
It does mean more.
Yeah, and it was incredible, obviously, to finish the job, and obviously a great sense of satisfaction. I mean, you've touched on it already, though. I mean, I imagine you didn't go into that summer thinking that, well, you captain them to fourth and then you'd be on your way.
No, I didn't. I thought it would be resolved, but unfortunately it wasn't. I'd spoken with David quite quickly after that game, and David was like, listen, we don't want to be offering more than a year to players over 30 now. It's the way the direction the club don't want to be in. And I said, okay, yeah. I said, I've been really influential in terms of the club and you achieving, a Champions League place. So I said, I feel as if I've warranted a 2-year. And Dave was like, listen, I understand, but this is the club stance now. And that was what it was. That was the conversations all the way. And I said, listen, Gaffer, I'm not going to sign unless I get a 2-year contract. I want to be honest with you now. And he's like, come on, Stubbs, you don't be like that. And I get it. I've been on that side of the fence and I know what managers have to do. But as a player, I felt as if I deserved a 2-year. And then David's gone, okay, then listen, let's have another conversation in a couple of weeks' time. I've at the time, I remember it word for word. I said, listen, Gaffer, you can ring me tomorrow. You can ring me next week. You can ring me in 2 weeks' time. The answer's going to be the same. Yeah. Unless you come back to me and saying, right, it's a 2-year deal, I won't be signing.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, just go and have a think about it. And anyway, I did. And I was in the pictures at the time with Mandy. And I forget what film we're watching. And obviously the phone rings. And I've gone to Mandy, it's the Gaffer. So like she said, go and answer. So I've gone outside. You've gone, Stubbs, you right? Come on, I'll be signing this contract. Yeah. And I've gone, Gaffer. I said, I told you a few weeks ago, unless you're saying to me today it's a 2-year contract, I'm not signing. Yeah. And he's gone, Stubbs, we can't. Come on, let's just get it sorted. Come on. I went, no. I said, if you're telling me it's 2 years, I'll come now and sign it.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then we're going to have to go our own way.
Yeah.
And he's gone, okay. He said, listen, it's not going to, I can't offer you the 2-year contract. I said, okay, no problem. I don't hold it against you.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And I went and I was gutted. I must admit, I was devastated. But I just felt strongly about it enough to not do it.
Yeah, almost like you've been taken. The fact that you were an Evertonian was being taken advantage of.
You know, ironically, I was there for another 3 years after. You know, when I come back. But you know, that's by the by. You know, it was a situation that could have easily been resolved, and David would say, from his point of view, and I would say from my point of view, and as I said before, we both were too stubborn about it, and in the end, neither one.
Yeah, and what was also mad about it, I know you're going about doing heading practice in your 30s, brings in a centre half who can't hit the ball, space, and all that money, and then obviously he goes after 6 months, and you go, because I remember actually it's my first game for the paper was up at Sunderland on New Year's Eve. Okay, and I remember you warming up, and they were all the Evertonians were all cheering you then as a Sunderland player. So it's funny how it came about. And I mean, did he have to do a big climb down? I mean, what was it like when he called you back in the January?
No, we met at Tickle Trout in Preston. Yeah. So we met at the hotel there, and it was a very informal conversation. It was myself, Jimmy Lumsden, and the Gaffer, and he's gone, right, water under the bridge. Let's not speak about it. Let's just come on. Let's just get it down. Let's get you back, and let's go from there. And literally, it was that. Yeah. You know, I think because if we would have chatted about it, we both would have been saying the same things and going around the circles. Yeah. You know, and it was more about getting me back. Everton weren't doing great. I was over the moon when Jimmy Lumsden rang me and said, listen, like, come on, do you want to come home? And I was like, more or less saying, like, you haven't left, Jimmy. I shouldn't have left in the first place, like messing. Yeah. And he went, no. He said, but that was David, you know that. And then we met, and then it was done. And you know, when we managed to, not through me whatsoever, but we had a better second half of the season. Mm-hmm. Then obviously, you know, I'm back, and then when you look at it, I was back home. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, obviously, by this time, the club are really evolving, you know, from the early ups and downs. By now, it's a general upwards trajectory. And those next couple of seasons, then, some really impressive results then, and the run in Europe as well. Yeah, you know, we started to bring in, you know, some good players as well, you know, that helped the club and helped the upturn in fortunes of the football club. You know, one of David's biggest attributes was how well he done in the transfer market for such a small pot of money that he would have had available. You know, he was very meticulous. He was very stringent with what he had, and he wouldn't rush into transfers. Mm-hmm. You know, he really took his time, and I've got to admit, obviously, apart from the one we've just been speaking about, Per Calderup, he didn't make an awful lot of mistakes with them. Yeah, you know, far more right than wrong. I think he would have certainly made a better job of the 400 or 500 million that we've spent under Mr. Mashiri. Well, quite, yeah. And then,
when it was time to go, obviously, then you go again. You've a spell at Derby County, but then you come back as a coach again. So Everton brings you back.
It does
again.
Yeah, there's a bit of a consequence running through all of this, isn't there? I'd got towards the end of my Everton career, and I knew it was coming towards the end.
Yeah.
It was time for the next wave of your Joseph Yobos, your Jolien Lescotts, your Phil Jagielkas. You know, they were the next ones to take over the mantle. Yeah. And I was, even though I still thought, you know, I was playing, I was on the bench a little bit more, which was frustrating for me. Yeah. And then I got an offer from Derby, which was a stupid offer, really, for 18 months to go. Right. And I'd went and spoke with David, because obviously I respected his opinion, and said, listen, I've been given this offer. What do you think? And he basically, his answer was, what are you waiting for? Yeah. You know, go and sign it. Anyway, I went to Derby, and Derby was a great club, some really good people, but they just didn't have a Premiership squad. Yeah. And unfortunately for me, I didn't necessarily play a lot of games there. My knee was starting to give me a little bit of trouble. It wasn't allowing me to play to the best of my ability, and I literally very quickly went to see Paul Jewell and said, listen, Gaffer, I'm struggling here. I'm going to retire. Yeah. And he's gone, no, don't. He said, just give it a bit of time, let it settle down. And I said, listen, I have been doing, but it's not showing any signs of getting any better. Yeah. And I went and seen the chief executive, and I expressed to him, I said, listen, I'm thinking about retiring. And he was unbelievable at it. As a club, they were so professional, dealt with it really well. And I think I ended up finishing in the November. Yeah. And then the following week I came into Belfield. It's Belfield. To Finch Farm. Yeah. And because I needed to get a shirt signed. And as I was in there, David, we've crossed paths, and he's gone, Stubbs, right, listen, congratulations, brilliant career. What are you up to? I said, no, I'm just coming to get a shirt signed. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not sure yet. I said, but I do want to go into coaching, I think, and management. He went, okay. He said, I've got a press conference. Let's have a chat. And that's how it came about. Yeah. And I waited around for probably a couple of hours. And then we went and had a chat and said, listen, there's a role here for you. Yeah. Come and work with Taff, Andy Holden, with the 21s, and take it from there and see how you get on. And anyway, very quickly, you know, Taff's gone to me, listen, on you go. Yeah. You do it, I'll be on your shoulder. If you need me, I'm there. If you don't need me, then you don't need me. Yeah. And he was brilliant for me. I bounced ideas off him. Had a bit of experience, which helped me in terms of dealing with things. And I had, you know, I think it was in the end, I had about 4, 5 really good years there. Yeah. You know, in terms of learning. And it was great. I had some good players. Managed to get a lot of players out on loan. Yeah. Who have earned a career now by his results. I think your role as a 21 manager is to get players a career. Yeah. First and foremost, you've got to try and get them into Everton's first team. Mm-hmm. If that's not going to be possible, you've got to get them a career. Yeah. It's not about you getting results. No. Luckily enough from that season, I don't know, and I don't think we've done it since, but we had 9 players out on loan that year. Okay. And it was great for them. Yeah. And what happens is they go out and they have a taste of it. They do well, or some not as well as what sometimes you do, and it needs a different loan. And what happens is they go out, they understand what Saturday 3 o'clock football's about. Yeah. And when they do come back from the loan, you can see that they've outgrown the 21s. Yeah. And they're ready to go. Yeah. And it'll either be they've done well, they come back and start training around the first team, or a club will take them. Yeah. And I think that's what happened. And a lot of them players, Jake Bidwell's, Josie Baxter's, Shane Duffy's, Skodran Mustafi at the time as well. Yeah, welcome. James Wallace, Luke Garbutt. We had Jack Rodwell in there as well. Ross Barkley. So we had a a decent little group.
Yeah.
So and then I felt as if I was getting to the stage where I was ready for the next step.
Yeah.
And then Hibbs came in, wanted to speak to me, went and had a chat. And then I felt as if I was ready for me first managerial job.
Yeah.
And I went there and I loved it. I had a great time there. Managed to get a little bit of success.
First Scottish Cup in over a century. Isn't it?
The players did great.
Yeah.
It was a momentous occasion. It really was. Obviously, to be honest, I got a lot of self-gratitude about it because there was a lot of sarcasm I felt sometimes in the press conferences. It was becoming like a little bit of a joke. Is this going to be Hibs' year? Yeah. It's 114 years. Well, when I first went, it was 113. Yeah. Second was, is it going to be this year, Alan? Yeah. And even if I wasn't going to be there, that was going to be the question to the next manager.
Yeah.
Is it going to be this year? And I always just say, it's going to be 1 year. Someone's going to do it. When or who, I don't know. I hope it's me.
Yeah.
But someone's going to do it. It can't go on forever. Yeah. And, we'd managed, I felt as if in the second year, we'd put a squad together that even though we were a championship club, we had a premiership team.
Okay.
Because we had quite a bit of quality in the team. The club had really pushed the boat in terms of the budget. We'd made some good acquisitions to the team, and that year I think we'd beat 3 Premiership teams on the way to a cup final. Or because at one point we were the only team in Scotland that had the chance of doing a treble.
Yeah,
we were right in the mix for the league. We got to the League Cup final, and we'd obviously got to the Scottish Cup final.
Yeah,
we lost the League Cup final 2-1, which we should never have. We were far the better team, but we made 2 individual mistakes, which cost us. In the end, we were just short in terms of our main aim, which was promotion, which was a real disappointment.
Yeah,
and ultimately, and I've no problem saying it, ultimately we'd failed because that was our main target.
Okay.
And then we had the softener in terms of the Scottish Cup, which I'm pretty sure if you would have give fans a choice between league and going promotion and Scottish Cup, there's a good chance it would have been a 50-50 split in terms of the Scottish Cup. And it was a special day.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic day. The scenes at the end of the game were memorable. I was just so pleased for, first and foremost, the players.
Yeah.
Secondly, the fans who'd been through a lot of stick and a lot of tough times. Who'd been there and they were so close and never happened. And thirdly, for my staff.
Yeah.
People would always look at me and go, well, I've sampled success.
Yeah.
I was lucky. So I'd had that, but they hadn't.
Yeah.
And it was so pleasing for me to see the smiles on people's faces and it basically, for the fans, I'd give them a memory that they'll never ever forget.
Well, you say that. It's more than a lifetime, isn't it? I mean, we go on about, we bang on quite rightly so, it's been 30 years for Everton, but, 100 and odd for Hibernian there. I mean, whatever, if you don't do anything else, Alan, you always get a pint up there and the green side of Edinburgh.
Yeah, no, I think I'm well revered, up in Edinburgh, and and it's a great place, and I do love going there anyway.
Yeah.
My next thing, would be, I want to be a fan watching Everton win something. I want to go, on a Saturday down to London, FA Cup day, or whatever it is, even the League Cup.
We're not picky.
Anything. I want.
Yeah.
In my lifetime, and as I say, it will come.
Yeah.
Everton will not be in the doldrums all the time.
Yeah.
It's impossible. I'm hoping the Freaking Group are a breath of fresh air and we take this club to rightfully where they should be, and that's comfortably in the top 10 and pushing for Europe.
Yeah.
Because I think, finally or thankfully, we're starting to move in the right direction. We've got an amazing stadium ready to move into. You know, I think recruitment now is key in terms of taking this club forward.
Yeah.
And I think we've got the right manager right now at this time.
Yeah.
You know, to stabilise the club and to move it from the perils that it has been in it over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, you speak about that and the move to the new stadium, but obviously the title of our series, Goodison Park, my home. It's becoming real. Well, it's becoming real because we've got that first game at the new stadium next month.
Yeah.
But how do you think you're actually going to feel when it's time to say goodbye to the grand old lady?
I really don't know.
Yeah,
is the honest answer. I've thought about it.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. I am with the many thousands that probably don't know what to expect, don't know how to deal with it. I know I've just actually had an invite from the club for Southampton game, which I'm looking forward to. I don't know whether I'm doing the commentary yet for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Will there be a tear? Probably. Yeah. It's going to be sad, not just for me, but for the thousands that have cherished the memories, the good and the bad. Yeah. I just don't know how Everton. It's a tough job for the club, how they're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be a job getting people out of the stadium. You know, they're going to want to. You know,
maybe they want to take a few souvenirs.
Well,
as well
I don't discount that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of memories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have gone to games with people who are not there now.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so many factors to take in place. You know, it's even me. You know, I actually love sitting in Goodison when there's no one there,
right?
And just looking around the place when there's that quietness. I used to do it sometimes before the game. Mm-hmm. I sometimes, even now, when I'm doing BBC Merseyside for the games, when everyone's gone and there's only maybe one or two are left when I'm doing the phone in, and I love that quietness about it. It's a special stadium. Yeah. You know, it's one that there's not many, or there's never has been many like it. I think there's obviously Goodison, there's Anfield, Highbury used to be one. Yeah. Where you're so close to the pitch. It's going to be missed.
Yeah. Well, it's big as blue as they come. Thank you so much, Alan Stubbs.
Thank you.